Facing the Mortgage Crisis is funded through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We've been doing not only town halls around the region, but we've also been doing broadcast programs on Detroit Public Television, on Michigan Radio, and we have put together a website. The website is facingthemortgagecrisis.org, and we urge you to go to that. There's a lot of really good information on that site. The mortgage crisis, as you all know, is something of a perfect storm. A lot of things went wrong all at about the same time, which is why I think a number of people are here this evening. And it ranges from cheap credit and subprime loans to the declining economy and high unemployment. And as we probably all know, Michigan has the highest unemployment in the nation right now at 15.2%. So that is really compounding and exacerbating the problems here in southeast Michigan. Right now, we are in the biggest housing slump since the Great Depression. In June, Michigan ranked 7th nationally in home foreclosures. And between January and June this year, we had over 60,000 foreclosures in Michigan. And as of June 30th, the top two counties were Oakland County in the second place with over 13,000 foreclosures, and Wayne County in number one position with nearly 30,000 foreclosures and 4,000 new filings in June of 2009. And just to give you an idea of the 2009 projections, they're projecting 2.4 million new foreclosures in the United States this year, but as of June 30th, we were already at 1.9 million. So it could go actually much higher than that. They're projecting 150,000 new foreclosures in southeast Michigan and 75,000 new foreclosures in Wayne County. So pretty bleak news, but we're here tonight to tell you that there is help available. United Way 211 is one resource. There are many others, nonprofit agencies, lenders, legal aid, and local government programs. And we have speakers tonight from many of those areas. Beginning with United Way 211, we'd like to turn the microphone over now to Chalita Lucas. She is here to talk to you about 211 can offer you.
Good afternoon. Of course, I'm Shalita Lucas. I am from United Way of Southeastern Michigan. By show of hands, how many people are familiar with the 211 program that we have? One hand. That's unfortunate. We're going to enlighten you today. Historically, United Way has been an agency where they gather a lot of monies and then they disperse it to other nonprofits for the benefit of the community. 211 was created some 3 years ago quite differently. And what 211 essentially is the 911 of health and human services. And as a result of our economic situation and foreclosures, there are a lot of residual effects that people don't typically think of when they lose their jobs or they go through pay cuts, and the mortgage and the car note and all that stuff might be at the top of the list, but then there are fallouts from that. Groceries. I no longer have medical coverage. How do I maneuver without losing energy? DTE, all those good things. Where can I go if I need assistance with my water bill? All of those things can be answered in the form of information and referral through 211. And it's a simple call. If you have a home phone, landline, you dial 211 and you'll be directly connected to a trained professional who will be more than happy to guide you through. Oftentimes, what will happen is, if say you call and you're in need of groceries, they will ask at some point, well, what other needs do you think you have, or do you predict you might have? How is it going with the medical cost? Do you need prescription assistance? And so things that you might not otherwise think of during the call, it'll come out. And for those that are cellular only individuals, there's an 800 number. And I want to say that 800 number is 800-552-1183. And you can give that number a call. Either number, you can give them a call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And again, that includes anything mental health, physical health. I need some assistance with DTE. 7,000 pieces of referral information are in our database. Everything that is presented to you on the phone is geographically driven, which means that whatever you need, we'll try our very best to help you find it within your own communities. So say you live in Dearborn and you are looking for the nearest food pantry. We won't send you to Ipsy. We'll send you to the closest location within your zip code. Okay? And I mean absolutely anything you can think of. You'd be surprised the calls we have. If you find yourself in a crisis where you're feeling depressed, you don't have medical coverage, and you think you need to talk to a crisis counselor, you can call 211 24 hours a day. We receive calls in regards to domestic violence, issues with children and juvenile custody cases, and anything you can literally think of, we will do our level best to supply you an answer and refer you somewhere. That does include legal services as well. Okay? That's 211 United Way.
Thanks, Shalita. Appreciate that. And if you have questions for her afterwards, I'm sure she'll be happy to take them. It is a wonderful service, and as we all know, there are a lot of other problems sometimes that are associated with people who are facing foreclosure, and 211 puts you in touch with the social services that you need. Okay, we are here tonight with two experts, Jamil Haj, who's the director of the Wayne County Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program. She's here with her counselor, El Gayevsky. Jamil?
Good evening, everyone. I know this is not a happy occasion, but I'm very pleased to see so many faces reaching out for help. The worst thing you can do in a situation like this is bury your head in the sand and do nothing. Because if you do that and you're at risk or are in mortgage foreclosure, you know where you're going to end up. So I congratulate you for taking the first step. In 2007, Wayne County not only topped the state of Michigan in terms of foreclosure, it topped the nation. It was the #1 county nationally for foreclosure. Well, Mr. Ficano and Wayne County knew that they had to take steps to put together an effective program to begin to deal with this, and we believe that we did that. We believe that we did that for the benefit of the residents. As Mr. Ficano likes to say, this program is not just free of charge. It really isn't. It's funded by taxpayer dollars. These are your tax dollars at work for you, so we want you to take advantage of it. And I'm not going to tell you that if an organization charges for loan modification, we hear that term all the time, that it's a scam. But the reality is you don't have to pay for good loan modification services. In Wayne County, we are fortunate. We're blessed to have a large network of housing counseling agencies. In the way we've designed the program, we've networked in, we've utilized the resources that are available in Wayne County to network in altogether 48 housing counselors for your benefit. So this is the way you get access to our program. Do we have the website up? The website is called fightmortgageforeclosure.com, and you'll see that shortly. It's very simple to access, and you can go home tonight, create a case online, and tomorrow we'll have a case in our queue. Actually, instantaneously we'll have a case in our queue. And the next available housing counselor will be able to take your case. You will receive, all you have to do is, can you click on this button?
Now?
Yes. This is what you're going to see. You click on the Begin Now by submitting your foreclosure case online. The first thing you're going to do is read through all the disclosures and releases. We want you to read carefully through them. Right? Indicate that you've read them. Click the submit button. And here's the online application. All you need to do is have your documents ready and fill the application out to the best of your ability. It's I believe, a 5 or 6 page application. It's basically, once you've completed the information, we'll have all that we need with respect to your loan and your financial situation and a snapshot picture of your family budget, which, by the way, you will also receive an email that indicates to your personal email that says, here is your snapshot of your family budget. Your expenses are X, your income is Y, you're either falling short by this number or you are clearing, you have $150 in excess of what your expenses are. So you'll know just by completing the budget online. And many people have used this as a self-help tool. But the main thing I want you to take away from this is it's very simple. It has to be simple. I helped our IT department design it, and my background certainly is not a foreclosure counselor. That's why we work with licensed, certified foreclosure counselors. And that's the other point that I wanted to make as well. A lot of times people think if they're not paying for a service, then it's not very good. Well, in this case, you're actually getting better services through government and nonprofits, because with our programs, Washtenaw County has the same thing, Lighthouse of Oakland County, Southwest Solutions. They require that their housing counselors are certified through either MISHDA or another organization called NeighborWorks. The for-profits do not. So honestly, you're getting quality service with very skilled experts, akin to the services you'd receive from a CPA or an attorney. They're specialists in this area. So after you've completed the case, within about a week, you'll receive a call from your foreclosure counselor. Now, one thing I wanted to mention before I stepped away and turned the floor over to Al is that the Michigan law has changed recently. And the law has created a situation where it's incumbent on the residents to reach out to their mortgage company and reach out to a foreclosure counselor. What the law requires, if you're going to avail yourself of it, is that within 14 days of receiving a notice that your home may be going to sheriff's sale, that you need to contact the individual that's listed on that notice and indicate that you want to schedule a time to do a workout with that individual. You need to do that right away. Simultaneously, you need to reach out to a housing counselor. And it's very simple. Again, if you call 211, they will, if you're anywhere in Wayne County, they'll direct you to our program. And we have, as I said, 48 excellent qualified housing counselors. If you're in any one of the other areas, whether it's Oakland County, Washtenaw County, 211 can also help you. But the main thing is, you'll ultimately get to the website. You ultimately want to complete a case online, and we will guide you through the entire process. We know it's a terrifying experience. It's a frustrating experience. And it's much more frustrating for a resident because the counselors have counselor-only lines. And I know Carlos is going to be speaking to you about that as well. But let us help you. And again, we congratulate you for taking the first step and coming in and dealing with your situation. Thank you.
And you have a program that you're going to go through and explain kind of how the mortgage foreclosure process works and what your organization can do in order to help people avoid the conclusion of foreclosure, actual foreclosure. I'm going to find your program.
Thanks, Wendy. Great. As Jamil mentioned, the first step is addressing the problem, addressing your crisis. Second step is fightmortgageforeclosure.com. That's the online application. I encourage you all to do that. It's not an investment in time. It's only an investment in time, not in money. Again, we're the free guys. It doesn't cost anything to seek our counseling and our assistance through this program. Most of the answers to your questions these days are it depends. I don't want to stifle any questions today, and I'll be happy to stay afterward and address any specific questions, but it depends. It depends on what your situation is. It depends on who your lender is. It depends on what kind of loan you have. So for us to address any of your questions accurately and intelligently, we've got to have this background. It's confidential, and again, it's free, and we'll respond in a timely manner. Welcome. Again, you saw in the first part, Jamil introduced there's a number of legalities to address. In order to talk to your lender, we need your personal authorization. To your lender, we're just a voice on the phone. They don't know if if we're your ex-spouse or your nosy neighbor. So we need a personal authorization from you right off the bat in order to even talk to your lender and get some background information from them as well. So most of this legalities that we go through, the release of information, the conflict of interest, client counseling, it's all for your protection. So there's a volume of paperwork that's collected right up front, and that's in the documents we'll send you once you make your application online. Included in the package we send you is a monthly budget. One of our primary strategies in addressing your lender and your mortgage difficulties is to present a budget to show that you've addressed the crisis. You've pared down your expenses, and we can show the lender that a loan modification or a reduction in your terms can help you and solve the problem. So we need you to be honest. We need you to be accurate. We need you to be complete in disclosing all of your utilities, your other credit obligations, all of your household expenses on a monthly basis. The hardship affidavit, that's just where you describe your troubles. You give us a little short narrative. Doesn't have to be in great detail. And in fact, just general detail is probably preferable. And just telling us what happened and how you expect to resolve it. And we can help you compose that as well. So we might, we'll have to, in most cases, address things face-to-face with you. We'll schedule a private appointment with you to compose this hardship affidavit. The action plan, and you'll receive several action plans from us. From step to step, we'll ask you for different documents as we digest those items and determine our strategy for addressing your lender. We'll ask you maybe for more documents and additional information from you. The foreclosure prevention checklist, this is all your personal documentation. Remember when you applied for the loan, in most cases you had to submit a volume of personal documents, W-2s and tax returns, paycheck stubs, bank statements. All that is going to come back to us again. This is almost like reapplying for your loan all over again. So it's very time consuming, I'm sure. The list we give you is quite extensive. It might take you some time to fish it out, but it's really vital that we have that background. Some definitions. Delinquency, when you are 15 days or more late. Well, actually, you're in default the day after the 1st. If your payment is due on the 1st, that's when payment is expected, and that's the terms of your contract. And on the 2nd of the month, you're in default. Now, in practice, no, they don't enforce that. Most people make their payments after the 1st. In fact, if you have automatic payments, that typically they'll collect them through the 7th without any problem. And it doesn't reflect on your credit until you're a full 30 days late. But you may know that after the 15th, it's going to cost you. They're going to add a fee to that. So after the 1st, you're late. After the 15th, there's a fee. After the 30th, there's a fee, and it nicks your credit, and then nasty mail and phone calls start. Foreclosure, that's the actual conveyance of title. That's when you lose not possession of the home, but you lose title to the property. And you'll again, under the new foreclosure laws here in Michigan that avail you of some new protections, you have to respond on a timely basis. If you get a foreclosure notice, you need to follow the timeline and respond to the lender and to a loan counselor, or a foreclosure counselor rather, within 14 days. The sooner the better. We still get cases in every day where the foreclosure sale, they call it locally a sheriff's sale, is only days away, or even same day. And that's all we do for the next day is make calls and try to postpone a foreclosure. The servicer is who you make payments to. That may not be the lender, that may not be the investor, that may not be the original bank that gave you the loan, but that's who you're dealing with now. And they may not hold the loan as an investment. Again, they're just under contract to collect your payments. There may be another investor in the background. It may be, a Wall Street investor. It may be one of these government mortgage houses like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or even the government-insured loans, Ginnie Mae, if you have an FHA loan. But the servicer is the person or the party that you write your checks to. And they are the ones that we need to address for any of these foreclosure alternative terms. The timeline. A lot of you are here because you've progressed more or less through this timeline. First and second month, you get calls and letters from the lender. The third month, a demand letter or a notice to accelerate. Foreclosure activities usually commence after you're 90 days late. Again, it depends on your lender. We've got cases where people haven't made a payment in a year and they haven't heard anything from their lender. My advice is open your mail. That's the best thing. A lot of people just ignore the situation. They try to wish it away. But the best thing you can do is open your mail. If you don't understand it, fightmortgageforeclosure.com. I'm going to say that over and over again. That's the best thing you can do, is just get an application online so we can address these issues with you and interpret some of the legalities that come with these letters that you receive. On the fourth month, notice of intent to foreclose, or foreclosure attorney engaged, sheriff's sale scheduled. This will add $1,100 to $2,000 to the cost of keeping your home. Well, this is one of the things that the new law avoids. Before they can get to that stage, before they can add these extra fees to your account, they have to give you the opportunity to respond and request a meeting or request a workout with the lender. And the 6 months or thereabout comes the sheriff's sale. Again, they call it the sheriff's sale here because the county sheriff does the dirty work. That's where the actual auction takes place. So usually, again, it's an auction. The lender will appear, or their representatives will appear, and they'll bid their, what's due them. There may be another investor in the picture. They may decide to allow another investor to purchase the house at that sale. But again, that's not your move-out date. That's one of the things we want to impress today. Even though there's a sheriff's sale and it's no longer a home that's entitled to you, you don't have to move out. In Michigan, you still have what's called a redemption period. It lasts as long as 6 months. But again, because it's not your house, you don't make payments, you don't pay taxes, you can cancel your insurance, you're basically a non-rent paying tenant. I would advise that you set some money aside, because at that point, after the sheriff's sale, a lot of your alternatives just go south. They disappear. It's very, very difficult to redeem a property after the foreclosure sale. And any offer that you might get will demand a down payment up front, some kind of upfront fee or advance payment on the plan. So even though you're not making payments, set aside some money if you can, because any settlement after that point to retain the property will require some cash, generally speaking. Again, the 6 month period can be shortened. That's, in general terms, the 6 month period applies to most suburban properties. If you have a property with a lot of equity, that is, your loan amount is far below the balance of your loan, or if you have a property with a lot of acreage, that redemption period can be extended to 12 months. It also can be shortened to 30 days. the lender or the lender's representative, usually the local foreclosure attorney, may send inspectors by the property, and you don't have to let anybody in. We should emphasize that during a redemption period after this foreclosure, you have the right of occupancy, but you don't have to let inspectors into the property. I would advise you let representatives of the utility companies come in if they need to, but anybody representing the bank, the lender, the foreclosure attorney, you don't have to let them in at that point. But if they go by and they determine that the house isn't being maintained, the grass is growing, there's gardens in the gutters, they may determine that the property is vacant, and they can shorten that redemption period to just 30 days. And you would have to appeal to prove that, no, you still live there, it's your primary residence. And so it's easy to address, but it's just another headache along the way. So we would suggest that you mow the lawn and keep some cars in the driveway and people coming and going and the lights on to avoid that situation. At the end of the 6-month redemption period comes eviction, which is a ugly term, but they can't evict you without a hearing before a judge. So you'd be notified of a court appearance, and that's the one appearance that you should attend. That's the last opportunity for any compassion in these circumstances. If you go before the judge and say, look, it's been 6 months, I found a place to go, I've got a plan to move out, I need a couple more weeks, the judge may just say, fine, extend this redemption for another 4 weeks to allow you to move. But if you don't go to the hearing or you show up and you don't have a plan, the judge is going to say just proceed with the foreclosure or proceed with the eviction, I should say, and they show up with a dumpster at the curb and start emptying your contents. And that's what we want to avoid at all costs. So look, again, read your mail. That's the best thing you can do. And share it with us. We have cases where we fall behind and we call people and say, oh yeah, well we've got a letter or we got an offer from the lender and we're not aware of that. And they may have gone ahead and made something that made it an agreement that was unwise. So if you deal with a foreclosure counselor, share any information, any messages, any correspondence that you get from the lender with us. Admit there's a financial emergency. Obviously, you're here. You're addressing the crisis, in other words. Nationally, only 50% of people who are delinquent on their mortgage contact their servicer. This reveals that many are in denial or think there is no hope. Other people just walk away. During this period, when you run into trouble like this, when you run into difficulties like this, any contact you have with your lender is positive. There are so many instances where people are walking away from their homes, and the lender suddenly has a liability out there, and you know very well what happens to empty homes. So their losses can be compounded at that point. They're glad to hear from you and know that you're in the home and serious about retaining it. So if you're going to be late, call them. If you can only make a partial payment, call them. If you've engaged in a mortgage counseling service or a foreclosure counseling service like ours, call them, let them know. We'll let them know as well, but we want to coordinate those things. So short of yelling and screaming into the phone, any contact with the lender is positive. Establish an emergency plan. Some of these are very obvious. You look for a new job. Well, good luck. Keep looking, however. Perseverance is a virtue, as well as patience in these circumstances. Consider taking several part-time jobs. Sell things you no longer need. Bring in a renter to help you pay for the cost of, well, I wouldn't advise that, but that's an option if you have an acquaintance or a relative that might help you make the payments. An emergency budget must be created. You have to be honest. You have to make this adult decisions now. Can you keep the house? It's more than just the payment. It may be the payment plus taxes and insurance, maintenance. If you have a large property or a high maintenance property or an older property that requires a lot of repairs and maintenance, are you up to it? Are you at a point in your life where you're going to be able to maintain the property in addition to just covering the payments? So you have to make that adult decision. Be realistic. Have you been able to stabilize financially from that event that caused you to fall behind? Well, hopefully that's coming. If it hasn't, you're addressing it and you've got a plan. Either you're out looking for jobs or you're seeking benefits to offset your lost income. Your emergency budget differs from your regular budget. Again, closely examine your real expenses. Prioritize. A lot of the things, and I should emphasize right off the bat that a lot of the things that we'll propose to you will hurt your credit. Your credit score to us is secondary. Our purpose, our mission is for you to retain your home. And we may tell you, stop making payments, at least temporarily, on your credit cards. The consequences for missing payments on your credit cards are much less severe than they are for missing payments on your house payment. Your credit score can recover. In a lot of cases, they'll charge off your balance, and in a year or two, you'll get an offer for a card again, although the climate's always changing, but there's been examples where they offer you a card right back again. But the point is, your credit can recover. Once your house is gone, that's much more difficult to recover. Again, probably obvious items to you. When you present a budget, you have to pare things down. Eliminate your extravagances, any little luxuries you might have. People ask me, can I keep my house and still keep my boat? Well, no, you can keep your boat, but you can't launch it, you can't insure it, you can't fuel it, you can't license it. That's a low priority item in our eyes. Your house payment is the priority expense. So no, generally no, and if you have again, a lot of credit card debt or high-priced car payments, again, the adult decision comes into play. What do you want to keep? You want to keep the house, you want to keep the car, the nice car. Again, make contact. As we mentioned, any contact with your lender at this time is positive. And in fact, under the new foreclosure law, if you get this foreclosure notice, you're required to contact the lender in order to get the benefits of the new law. And we didn't really specify the benefit of the new law is that normally from the time you get a foreclosure notice to the time of the sheriff's sale, when you actually lose title to the property, is only 30 days. Well, if you follow the guidelines, the timelines, and contact the lender, request a meeting, and contact a foreclosure counselor, that time can be extended to 90 days, which gives you plenty of time to present a case and plead your case to the lender. So again, contact. Stay in contact. If they don't hear from you, they're going to think you're gone. And they'll foreclose that much faster just to protect their interest in the property. Explain to the representative your situation and negotiate a plan to repay them, but don't make promises you can't keep. Again, the best case you can offer is the most accurate and the most honest and the most complete. You want to know, what the situation is behind your circumstances. Your workout plan, again, emergency budget, proof of earnings, tax documents, bank statements, all the things that you might remember submitting when you first got the loan. Again, you're just you're applying for your new loan all over again. Home retention solutions, these are some terms that you should be familiar with. Reinstatement, generally you get 2 reinstatement notices. The first one comes along with a notice of intent to foreclose. They tell you, this is what's due. This is what you need to bring back your delinquent payments and bring the account current. A second reinstatement comes after the foreclosure where they say, this is what you need to recover the property, and usually it's the entire loan balance plus any fees or past due payments. A repayment plan, this is what you hear from first. If you call customer service and tell them you're having some difficulties, they'll forward you to collections. The collections department has limited authority. All they can do is offer you a repayment plan. And you may have heard this already, say, well, you're 4 payments behind, let's add $150 to your next 8 payments and you'll be all caught up. Well, you're not looking for higher payments, you're looking for lower payments. So a repayment plan generally is not what you're looking for. In narrow circumstances, if you've recovered, you had an instance where you were out of a job, you had a lapse in employment, you fell behind, now you're back at work, you're making good money, well, maybe you can afford a repayment plan. But in most cases, we're finding people are seeking lower payments and some relief from their mortgage payment. A forbearance agreement. Forbearance is not forgiveness. Forbearance is just a temporary reduction in your terms. So a lender may offer you, say, 3 months to 6 months of no payments. Usually it's half payments, just to give you some relief from your payments and an opportunity to recover from whatever circumstances led you into the difficulties. At the end of 6 months or at the end of this forbearance period, whatever it is, 3 months to 6 months, they'll look at your situation again. If you haven't recovered, well, then they'll consider other terms. But a lot of times the first offer you'll get is a forbearance agreement. Loan modification is the holy grail. That's what most people are looking for. You've heard of the Obama plan. That is a loan modification. That is a permanent restructuring of your loan, adjustment of your interest rate and terms. Partial advance or claim, generally associated to an insured loan, like a PMI insured loan or an FHA insured loan. That's where they take a portion of your balance, the amount you owe, they set it aside in a non-interest bearing account. So you still owe this money, but you're not making any payments on it, and it's not accruing any interest. You're only paying interest on this reduced balance, and hence a reduced payment. But if you ever try to sell the house or pay off the loan from any source, you still owe that money. So they're not forgiving anything. They're just setting it aside, so to speak. It's still out there as your obligation. A reverse mortgage, again, applies to a very narrow set of circumstances. It's generally offered to seniors, age 62. You generally have to have some credit, some equity, and it's expensive. The fees associated with it are quite high. A refinance, again, in most of the circumstances that we observe, a refinance is out of the question. Again, you need some credit. You need to qualify with some income. Exceptions are at FHA. If you have an FHA loan and you address your circumstances early enough, you can apply for a streamlined refinance, where they don't look at the value of your house, they don't appraise your property, they don't look at your income. They just want to know that you're still in the house, still living there. They don't verify your income. I believe they do verify your employment, your source of income, but you generally don't have to qualify that. FHA is just looking to replace that loan with a lower interest rate loan. But again, you have to address that early enough so that if you foresee what we call imminent default, that you can apply for that in time. Because once you're behind, you have to bring the account current in order to qualify for a refinance. Chapter 7 or 13 bankruptcy, that's the last resort. A bankruptcy can stop a foreclosure. You have to act quickly, though. It sometimes takes weeks to file bankruptcy and stop that, but many times people going into Chapter 13 in particular come out worse off than they went in.
What's the difference between 7 and 13?
Chapter 13 is a reorganization of your debts. The court will take over payments of your obligations. They'll authorize reduced payments during that period. Chapter 13 bankruptcy can last as long as 5 years in some cases. Chapter 7 is a complete forgiveness of debt. They just write them off and you're no longer obligated. Either one of them, again, is a serious nick on your credit. Generally, they request that you do a 13 before a 7, but we have seen instances where you go straight to a Chapter 7. Non-retention solutions. Again, if you're looking down the road and you say, I can't keep this house, I can't sell this house, what am I going to do? Well, if you can consider a traditional sale. Again, that's just finding a buyer, listing it with a realtor, finding a buyer and selling it. A short sale is when, as it applies in many cases, where you owe more than the market will demand on the house. You can appeal to the lender to accept a lower settlement on their payoff. So if you owe $100,000, you can only sell the house for $75,000. You can appeal to the lender to accept a lower payoff to allow that transaction to be completed. There are consequences of that. That's forgiveness of debt. That top $25,000 that's been forgiven will come back to you as on a 1099. You'll have a tax obligation on that. Deed in lieu of foreclosure. This is this throwing up your hands. Look, I read the writing on the wall. I can't afford this house. I don't want to go through foreclosure. It saves everybody a lot of time and money and expense and money. Just to offer a deed. Here's a deed. Here's the keys. The house is yours. We also explore, pardon me? That's right. Forgive me. Yeah, you're offering the loan right back to the lender. It's really to their benefit. It's saving them money more than anything. They're avoiding all the legal fees and carrying costs that they might incur in going through a full-blown foreclosure. About the deed in lieu, as the name implies, you're giving up title to the property in advance of foreclosure. So if you see that a foreclosure is coming, you can't afford the house, you can negotiate with the bank just to turn the property over to them, deed it to them in advance of foreclosure. Not listed here, but something we often entertain is a cash for keys arrangement. If you're in your redemption period, that is, you're past the sheriff's sale, you're ready to move, you can leave the house intact, secure, and what they term as broom clean. You may be able to negotiate a cash settlement from the lender through their agent or a representative just for a sum of money to help you move, to help you relocate. That's right. Well, remember, in your redemption period, you have 6 months. A lender would prefer to get their hands on that property as soon as possible, list it, secure it, put it on the market, and try to resell it somehow. And the sooner they do that, the better it is for them. Well, if you cooperate and say, look, I'm ready to go, all I need is, $800,000 the security deposit on my new apartment, well, they might say, let us help you with that. If you can vacate the property prior to that 6-month period, they may be able to advance you some money to help you move. Cash for keys.
Give you some cash.
Yep.
Thousands of dollars of legal fees taking you to court and having to throw it out. So they really give me $800 and it costs them $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah, and we've seen all manner of settlements, high and low. I won't promise you anything. Again, it depends on the lender and the circumstances. But that's another option that you can see, that you can foresee. Once you're past the foreclosure sale, you're in the redemption period. Tips for working with the mortgage servicer. You call customer service, you tell them you have a problem. As I said, they refer you to collections. Well, collections is very limited as what they can offer you. You want the loss mitigation department. And that's what our service has in their back pocket. We've got contacts for all the loss mitigation departments by whatever name they go by. You'll hear them as Home Retention Division, Customer Advocacy. They all have their own name. But loss mitigation is what we're trying to get through to. Those are the people who can offer you alternative terms, either forbearance, loan modification. As we said, collection people can only offer you a repayment plan in most cases, and that's what they're encouraged to offer you. So we'll break through those. We've got the contacts. We'll break through to the loss mitigation people and plead your case to them. Get professional help. An objective third-party opinion will help you when you're dealing with a financial emergency. Well, an attorney. Be careful. If you go to a bankruptcy attorney, he's going to recommend that you file. And that may not be the best thing for you. But we're professionals. We'll help you. We're free. Call us. FightMortgageForeclosure.com. Don't get scammed. We mentioned that there are for-profit services just like ours. We're the free guys. You might run into somebody where just to attend a meeting like this might cost you $100, or to have a face-to-face sit-down would be as much as $500 or $700, and you don't get that money back, and there's no guarantee they can help you. And they're perfectly legitimate business in many cases, but the assistance is free. You just have to, some people believe you get what you pay for, but nevertheless, when you call those people, you're going to be talking to salesmen. They're for profit. Again, foreclosure scams, if somebody offers to buy your house and lease it back to you, well, they're not going to make the house payment either. Before you know it, the bank is calling you wondering why you're living in their house. So be very careful. Seek professional advice before you sign anything with someone offering to buy your house. Again, Mortgage Foreclosure Prevention Program, that's us, MFPP. We have many partners that we deal with. Southwest Solutions is here today. It's one of our partners as well. They deal in the same program that we do. HUD Housing Counseling Agency, if you're not in Wayne County, they can steer you toward counseling agencies outside of Wayne County. Again, fightmortgageforeclosure.com. Go online. It's free. It's quick. And we will respond. Question?
Two questions. Firstly, it's a little bit ambiguous the way you describe it. At the 4-month period that you release your title, they claim your title, and you've got a 6-month window. Is that set in stone? I don't know whether you were saying, well, they can come in 30 days and kick you out. But how long is that? 6 months?
6 months from?
You budget for that 6 months after they put the... You said it...
I'm sorry, we really have to move along, and
Okay.
we will have questions
Okay.
at the end. We have one more speaker, so we'll take as many questions as we can, and these folks will be here afterwards, so you can ask them directly your questions. But at this point, thank you, Al, and we would like now to introduce Carlos Griffin. He is with Chase Homeownership Center in Troy, and do you want to just come up and speak using this microphone? That'd be great. Thought we would bring a lender here to talk to you directly as well this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Griffin. I'm with J.P. Morgan Chase. I am the manager of our Chase Homeownership Centers. What we are is an actual center where you can have a face-to-face conversation with an advisor from Chase with respect to your individual loan situation and be considered for loss mitigation workout options. Again, with Chase, part of our family now is Washington Mutual, as well as EMC, and we can assist with all those loans. But I'm here today just to talk about the overall issue of foreclosure and to give you some perspective from the banking side and the lending community with respect to how we're viewing this scenario and in this crisis and what we're trying to do to help. I'm excited to be here because there's a lot of great resources within the community that we at Chase and a lot of the lending community encourages homeowners to take advantage of to help us help you fight foreclosure. A lot of great information has been presented this evening that I agree with wholeheartedly with respect to some of the things that have happened to create this scenario, what you as a homeowner should do to have your individual voice heard and try to find the remedy that works best for you, and finding ways to get that dialogue started with your lender and being able to have productive dialogue with your lender. A statistic that was shared earlier in the presentation, the 50% of the homes that go to foreclosure in this country, there's never actually a complete dialogue between us at the banking side and the homeowner. And that conversation never takes place when it comes to loss mitigation options. If you do take anything away from this event tonight, is understanding that you do have the right to communicate with your lender. We encourage you to do so, and by doing so, you're having an opportunity to have your individual voice heard, your individual set of circumstances considered, and having your mortgage company look at your financial situation and works best for you. As Al mentioned in his presentation, right now, unfortunately, there is a lot of a wait and see approach when it comes to what you will receive in respect to how your lender approaches your individual case. And in order to help us do that, we ask that you give us a complete and accurate and detailed snapshot as to where you are right now financially and the circumstances that caused your loan default or the reasons why you're not able to keep your mortgage payments up or facing a possible foreclosure. What that information does, it gives us on the lending side an opportunity to truly evaluate you and your mortgage and see what we could potentially offer to help salvage the loan situation and avoid foreclosure. Contrary to popular belief, we do not want your home. Okay, that's one of the reasons why we are struggling as a result of all the homes that we unfortunately had to foreclose upon, accumulating non-performing assets, and that dragged our portfolios down, and that led us to Washington to look for assistance like a lot of other large institutions in the country today. But with that being said, understand that the goal of foreclosure prevention is on both sides of the aisle. It's just making sure that everybody involved in the process, and obviously that includes you as the homeowner, really understand what is entailed and what the lender is looking for. As it was mentioned a couple times this evening, the first thing that we're going to look at, and I mentioned it myself, is getting an understanding of your financial situation. Getting a handle on the reality of your situation goes a long way for everybody involved. When you have communications with your lenders, any third party that can help out, again, we 100% echo the sentiment that you do not need to pay for assistance or to communicate with us. We encourage everyone to use the resources within your community, in particular the nonprofit housing counselors, as well as the resources that are provided by your government agencies such as Wayne County, and also community services such as United Way 211. At the end of the day, we don't care how the dialogue starts with us as long as it happens, okay? We understand that there are trained professionals that can assist with that dialogue, and we actually encourage that. Not all lenders are set up with Chase where you act as Chase is, where you can actually come and talk to somebody face to face. I'm sure a lot of you have had the challenges with over the phone, the 800 numbers. You're getting somebody different every time you call. We encourage you to get an ally in your corner that can fight that good fight, help you with those phone calls, because it's not going to be a one-time deal. You make a phone call, okay, everything's done. There is going to be a lot of legwork to it. There's going to be a lot of dialogue. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of data gathering, and it's important that, again, you have the resources available to you to help you present us with everything that we need to get a full understanding of where you are, and also too that you have somebody, reiterating your side of the equation to the lender. And with that being said, hopefully collectively we can come up with the best solutions for as many people as possible. The ultimate goal is foreclosure prevention. Once we get a clear understanding of where you are financially, then that's where the reality of this entire process comes in. We're going to look at your financial situation relative to your mortgage. Everybody in this room's mortgage is different. Your principal balance is different. Your interest rate is different. Your investor is different. So whatever happens for your customer, or your neighbor, your cousin, any family members is not going to be exactly what you're going to get per se. Okay? So I would say to people, just to kind of help through this process, because we understand it's not easy, to not go in with any preconceived expectations or notions of, I'm going to get this because my neighbor Bob got that interest rate and I want the same thing. Bob's circumstances may be different than yours. He may have had more term built into his loan. He may have been 10 years into his mortgage where you're only 2. That gives us more flexibility in Bob's case. His interest rate may have been a little bit higher than yours, so that may have given us the ability to bring his down and have an overall impact be more beneficial to him in that scenario. So just keep in mind, again, when you start the dialogue with the lender, focus on your individual set of circumstances and take away from this whole process a little bit of understanding for yourself. And it was mentioned before that the reality piece is not only big for you as a lender, or you as a homeowner, but big for us. But I would say especially more so for you as a homeowner, because the issue of foreclosure prevention is not always an issue related to just the mortgage. We all have additional expenses that come along with, the cost of living, and feeding our families and being able to be a productive member of society. There's a lot of expenses that go into that, and understanding where you can maybe cut some corners or, remove some debt that you don't necessarily need, so you can focus on the expenses that are, top priority within your life. And we understand that the mortgage is that. Home ownership is everyone's dream, and that's why we're all here. And that's a place where we take care of our families and we all lay our heads, so we all understand the value of that. But again, getting an understanding of where you are so you can make a sound decision for yourself and your family is very key. Budgeting and understanding where your money goes on a monthly basis is going to be critical during this situation, because when your lender comes back to you with some form of foreclosure resolution, you'll hopefully have an understanding as to why that resolution was reached. Because again, we're going to look at your income situation, your expenses, what your ability to pay is, and try to work within the parameters of your loan as well as your income situation and do the best that we can to make it work. Now, not every instance we're going to be able to provide a retention option. Okay, unfortunately, it's just the reality of the way things are, but we're definitely willing to provide as much time as we possibly can through special forbearances. Some of the things that were mentioned now with the Michigan state law adjusting and increasing the foreclosure timeline. So again, in order for those things to be available to you, if you need more time and you've been displaced from your job and you're trying to transition to something else, having that dialogue with us allows us to come back and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, here's a forbearance for 90 days to buy you some additional time. Hopefully at the end of the 90 days, we can look at your numbers again. You were able to offset your income or change some expenses and try to make a better decision at that time. Again, the main things I want to stress are communicate with the lender. It was very well said that there's no bad communication between yourself and the lender because it only enlightens us with respect to your situation. Yes, we do have folks that start the process of conversating with you, that being our collectors, and that's what they're paid to do. They're paid to collect on the debt, but again, they are not the be-all, end-all when it comes to communicating with your mortgage company. Just because the first person tells you something doesn't mean you have to stop and say, okay, I'm going to take that repayment plan. You can ask to talk to somebody in our loss mitigation department. How can I be considered for a loan modification? How can I be considered for making homes affordable, which is the government's loan modification program, commonly referred to as the Obama plan? Those are all relevant questions, and those are things that we're encouraging you to ask us and find out what your mortgage company needs from you in particular to start the process of considering you for workout options. The package of information that was outlined here today is very accurate, okay? But again, we encourage you to get some assistance with that or communicate with your lender. We see all too many times, unfortunately, cases where we're not able to render a decision because we're missing documentation from a homeowner, maybe a one pay stub. But that's important for our investors to really gauge the likelihood of a successful loan modification for you. If we ask you for a 1 month's bank statement, then there's a reason for that. Okay, again, we want the details because we want to, again, make a fair and honest assessment of your situation, help you through this situation, whether that be putting together a retention option that gets the loan back on track and help you avoid foreclosure, or look at a situation where you're not in a financial position any longer to afford the property. Hey, what are my options? If I cannot retain the property, what are other ways that I can avoid foreclosure and help myself and make a sound decision? Again, if you're in a situation where you're facing having to liquidate the property and leave, there are some benefits to it from the standpoint of you can do some damage control prior to the foreclosure with the short sales, with the deed in lieu. The deed in lieu in particular, a short sale doesn't have any negative connotation on your credit report, so I just want to kind of put that out there to people. We view it as a regular sale of property because we understand we can't sell the house for anything more than what you could on the open market, so the lenders understand that. The deed in lieu, there is a little bit of a negative connotation there, but it's nowhere near as negative as a foreclosure. Will not have the impact that a foreclosure would on your credit rating, and allows you to move on and transition into other forms of housing, whether that be renting or buying another home in the future. A deed in lieu will allow you to do that as you recover from your hardship. So don't look at every foreclosure, or all the liquidation options as a bad thing. There are some benefits to it to help with that self-evaluation. Say, hey, maybe just because of unfortunate circumstances right now, I may be a little bit over my head. Let me make a smart decision for my family, transition into something different, and acquire another home in the future. Because if you get that foreclosure on your credit rating, that's going to be something that's hard to do as you move forward. Again, just to kind of wrap up my point, again, the lenders do want to talk to you. We do want to talk to everyone, and I want to throw this in as well, whether you've missed a mortgage payment or not. Okay, that's kind of a common misconception that I have to be delinquent to have my mortgage company talk to me about a modification. We understand we're not able to refinance as many people as we could, particularly in this market here in Michigan in the past because of the downturn in our property values. Okay, so our lending is not able to meet the demands of homeowners who have a previous mortgage that they need to get out of to be considered for some of these, different loan products that we may have on the refinance side. But with the loan modification, that's a modification of your existing mortgage. We are now looking at that on loans that have not defaulted, okay, under imminent default. That was something that was referred to earlier. If you have not had that conversation with your lender, I would encourage you to call, ask them what options are available to me within imminent default, or as someone who has not missed a mortgage payment. I'm not able to refinance because of the property value, but I need some assistance to stabilize my loan. I may have an adjustable rate that's coming due in the next year or so, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm going to default when this loan adjusts. So have that dialogue, find out what's there for you regardless of your situation. Please talk to your lenders. We have more tools and resources now with the help of the government, with the help of our friends in the nonprofit community. We're able to touch more homeowners and have these conversations with homeowners to offer our resources and try to get you on track as soon as possible. So have the dialogue, make sure you have contact with your lender, and I wish you all luck.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
And now we have time for questions. And actually, Al, would you like to just bring your chair up there, and we'll have all of you folks up at the table. I just want you all to know that we have put this pamphlet together for you, and it has a lot of resources on the inside, websites and toll-free numbers, and at the top on the right-hand side, HUD-certified housing counseling. So if you don't have a counselor yet and you're trying to deal with this crisis on your own, you don't need to. And these folks they're experts, they're free, and you can, if you live in Wayne County, you can go to their website tonight when you go home, and you can start the whole process of getting yourself in touch with a free HUD-certified counselor. As I said before, we will take questions from you, but we're not going to put you on camera, but we will take your questions. We've got folks here to answer them, and if you would rather write out your question, I can ask it for you. So I saw one hand here, and you will have to speak into the microphone.
I just need one sentence finished. I didn't quite get it on the to the gentleman from Fight for Mortgage Foreclosure. On a short sale, on a 1099, you will have tax obligation on
the amount of the debt forgiven.
On the amount of debt forgiven.
Right. So if you owe 100, you sell it for 80. That 20,000 that's forgiven can come back to you as a tax obligation. Yes.
The IRS considers that as
Taxable
income, taxable
Right.
income.
Okay.
That's not the lender coming after you. That's just a tax.
Right, that's the
component of it.
IRS. Okay.
Correct.
And how long does a short sale usually take?
Oh, gosh.
That's a
Again,
tough
it
one.
depends. My experience, from what I've heard, 60 days. Generally longer than an ordinary sale. Yeah, 60 to 90 days, I would say.
It can
And that-
take a long time.
And that's 60 days from the point of you presenting an offer to your lender. Okay, so I will just kind of add on to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Now,
you
that
can't
doesn't mean
consider-
60 days, obviously when you list a home, it's a very competitive marketplace out here. There's no assurance that somebody's going to come and place an offer on your property. But from the time you present that offer to your lender, it's about 60 days.
Right.
Because the lender has to approve the short sale, otherwise they're not going to let you off the hook. So even if you sell your property, you're not mitigating your situation. So the lender has to approve that sale.
On that tax situation, even though you get the 1099-C, there's an IRS Form 982 that you can file that will forgive that tax obligation. So don't get scared about the fact that you're going to get a 1099. Go get IRS Form 982, work with your tax preparer,
Yeah.
and that amount of taxes due for that can be forgiven, assuming you don't exceed certain income limitations.
And that's a great point because that's legislation that was put in place by the federal government through 2012. So now is the time to do a short sale if there ever was one.
Right. It's a fairly recent development.
Yes.
And I worked for a real estate company for several years, and the realtors were thrilled when that legislation went into effect.
Eases the concern of the homeowner who's looking at a short sale. We understand, I think I said that earlier in the presentation. Please know the lender understands the value of your home. We don't set the market value. But we understand if we foreclose on you and take that home back, we can only sell it for as much as you can on the open market. So why not take that now, avoid some of the additional cost and the hassle that goes through the whole foreclosure process. So we're definitely open to short sales.
I've got a question here. Can a mortgage renegotiation or loan modification be converted to an Energy Star mortgage?
The short answer to that would be no. What generally happens with the modification, keep in mind it's not a new loan, it's a modification of your existing loan. So really the only thing that changes with the loan are the terms and conditions, but not the lender, not the loan type and all those good things. So it would not convert to, say, an Energy Star mortgage or go from a Fannie Mae to an FHA or something along those lines.
Okay, and then just to follow up, how does the stimulus package and the energy tax credits fit in with foreclosure prevention?
Unfortunately, the stimulus package didn't touch on foreclosure prevention. It was just that to stimulate the local economy and hopefully create jobs. But in terms of foreclosure prevention, unfortunately, it hasn't really.
And I want to kind of just touch on that and expand on something that a lot of people may be curious about, being a Metro Detroiter myself, and going through and watching our dear auto companies go through the issues they've gone through with their bailouts, and watching the mortgage companies and the banks receive bailouts as well. And there's a common perception that we weren't held to the same standards as the auto companies, or weren't forced to make the changes and do the same amount of work as they have. I can tell you that's completely untrue. Having been a part of that transition and having to deal with it day to day, we are definitely being held to a higher standard. That's why we have more things that we're able to offer you. Granted, some of that is coming in the form of government assistance, but those funds were put in place to help us help our consumers. We're not holding on to those monies to build our portfolios. We're actually using that money to stabilize our portfolio by being able to offer more loan modifications and infuse that money into our assets, which are the homeowners. That's going to help our organization stabilize themselves in the future, just like we're hoping to have happen with the auto industry, with the cash for clunkers, and getting their portfolio solid as well.
Another question here?
Thanks very much. It concerns this tax question that you've just elaborated on. But it seems to me that in principle, the person who's losing the house would suffer the same liability to the IRS, whether it was a short sale or whether it was a foreclosure. You still say the bank's short 100 grand at the end, or 50 grand, that will be taxable. So is there a difference between a short sale and a foreclosure? And if there is, the tax benefit is to go foreclosure. It sort of goes against the short sale. Is that correct?
No, that would not be correct. There is a benefit to the short sale because obviously the amount that you're going to owe, or that's going to be indicated on the 1099, is going to be significantly less. If you do a short sale, it's only going to be for the difference, as Al indicated. But in the foreclosure, we're going to ask for the entire debt. So that's one
Is that
definite.
taxable?
I'm sorry? Yeah, that the entire amount of the loan that was foreclosed upon would come in the form of that 1099-C as taxable income. And then also, I do not believe that is something that's protected under that tax form as well, because that's only specific to when it's not a full debt collection. If it was a short sale or a shortfall, and the lender agrees that, hey, this was an agreed upon settlement, that's different, but a foreclosure is not an agreed upon settlement.
I asked my lender 6 months ago that I told him, I have an adjustable rate, and when it goes up, I'm not going to be able to afford the payment. Can you modify my loan? They said, well, we can't modify your loan because you're not behind in your payments. I said, okay, well, can I get it refinanced? And they told me, well, we can refinance it, but we're showing you owe this much, and we have your house only being valued at this much, which was a lot less than what I owed. I'm so far upside down in my house now, when at one point I did have 25% equity. I didn't need PMI, but now I'm down like 40% almost. Why shouldn't I just let them foreclose and file bankruptcy and walk away?
It's a different ball game now, and I can say this from the lender's perspective. I've heard what you've said. That's happened to a lot of homeowners. Keep in mind, previous to this year, we did not have the resources to offer loan modifications to those folks who had not missed a payment. So yes, you were being proactive with contacting your lender, and I applaud you for that. I just think at the time the lenders didn't have the resources outside of our traditional refinance channels to offer assistance to homeowners to get you out of that adjustable rate. Now we have the resources under imminent default to do that. So I would encourage you to contact your lender again. If you're behind, then obviously the rules apply. If you have not, as I mentioned earlier, that conversation would be totally different now than it was 6 months ago. And I hear exactly what you're saying. But again, it's a different conversation. We can look at modifying the loan. Again, not necessarily adjusting the principal balance or originating a new loan, but modifying some of the other components of the loan, such as the interest rate, maybe extending the term back out to give you the opportunity to repay the debt over an increased period of time, and having the payment be something that's more suitable for you based off of current market conditions, but it's not necessarily going to be an adjustment of the principal balance.
The equity is so badly negative, it doesn't really make any sense for me to do anything other than modify the principal I owe. Otherwise, why shouldn't I just walk away from it?
Well, again, I think, to be honest with you, you got to kind of look at it this way. It's an investment like anything else, and when you acquired the investment, it was valued at a certain point. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we don't set the market or dictate what homes are worth, okay? I'm in the same predicament as you are in my personal property, okay? So I totally understand that question, so I want to make that clear. It's a tough challenge for us because we cannot lend more than what an asset is worth. So that's why when you ask about a refinance, the answer is no, because there's not enough there to support a new loan. However, the flip side of that and not meeting that obligation, the impact is severe. We've all kind of talked about that today with the foreclosures, with the bankruptcies, with the walking away. Yes, in some instances you're freeing yourself of that obligation, but you're not, because the not paying or meeting that obligation is following you in terms of bringing down your credit scores. The indication of the foreclosure and the bankruptcies are going to make it hard for you to transition into something else. It's even hard to go out and rent a place with that in your past. So why not have the dialogue with your lender to try to make your current loan, regardless of what the principal balance is, something that you can afford going forward. And again, the principal balance is not the only way that we can have some added value to that loan and adjust you. If you have a 7% interest rate and your mortgage company takes you down to 3%, you're going to see a very big savings in your mortgage payment, and your payment may be comparable to that person that bought the same house as yours for $100,000 less because they caught it at a different time in the market. But again, their payment's going to look different because they're going to have a higher interest rate than you. So there are different ways that we're trying to combat this issue, but not in particular by doing any type of principal reduction or forgiveness. Unfortunately, we're not at that point yet. But don't let that discourage you, because a modification is different. It's not based off of loan to value of your property like a new refinance mortgage is. It's a modification of the existing loan. You're already an established credit risk, so we're not basing it off your credit score or trying to, approve you for something new. We know you're already there. How can we work with what we have that'll benefit everyone, considering the current market situation?
They won't modify it, they'll modify the terms or the rate.
Well, I won't say never. Okay, there are, and it depends on who your investor is and what they're willing to do. I've seen some instances where, not that they've modified the principal balance, I've seen those very rare, not with our organization, but some of the non-prime lenders have done that. But I've seen principal deferments. I'll use the same analogy that was given earlier. The home is currently worth $80,000, your mortgage is $100,000. The mortgage company could modify your loan to a payment based off of a principal balance of $80,000. Okay, and adjust the payment accordingly. You start paying on that, but that $20,000 sits in a silent second, a non-interest-bearing loan that will be due and payable at the end of the mortgage. So it's not, forgiven or wiped out. It's just deferred or sits in the silent position to kind of help benefit you, the customer. That's just one of many ways. But I was using the analogy of not adjusting the principal because, unfortunately, that's the most common practice right now. Not to say that there's lenders who aren't, lenders who are looking at the principal as a a different way to adjust that, they are, but I don't know of too many, if any, who are doing any principal forgiveness.
In our program, we haven't really seen much of that either. But I will tell you, as a real estate and economic development attorney, that the worst thing you can do is walk away, because that the lender is more likely than not in that situation to foreclose and pursue a deficiency judgment. And folks, I will tell you that that judgment's good for 10 years, and they can collect against any assets that you have.
Not if you file bankruptcy.
Not if you file bankruptcy, but
So I have, I'm able to do that. I can file down that much. I have that option.
But see, now you have a hardship. You have a hardship where even though you're not in default, it's considered eminent default. And as Carlos was saying, if you talk to your mortgage company 6 months ago, it's not like talking to them a month ago or 2 months ago or even a week ago. Options open up. And what your situation is considered eminent default, that there is a hardship there, and it totally is worth talking to your mortgage company. And if you feel that it's just too difficult for you, we understand that. That's why we're here. That's why this program is in place. So you can either call 211 or go to our website. Let us help you. Let us take that burden on for you. You have nothing to lose.
We've got another comment here from Mansa.
I just want to say that you really need to hook up with a housing counseling agency who here's what we do at Southwest with our clients. Number one, we empower you with information. We're going to tell you what's going on when we analyze your situation. Number two, we're going to explain all your options to you, the pros and the cons of the different options. Number three, we're going to develop a strategy with you. Different people have different strategies. It may be to save the house. It may be to walk away from the house. That's what they call it, walk away, but non-retention solutions is the term that they use. We'll develop those strategies with you. And finally, we'll coach you, work with you, and help you intervene with your mortgage company. As a counselor, I have no skin in this game. I don't own your loan. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm on your side. So I'm going to provide you objective information for you. Everyone should see a counselor because every situation is unique. It doesn't cost you anything but time. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Your situation is replicated many times, but you got to go into the details of it. When we do your analysis, one of the things I'll do is pull your property value. And you're right. You're making a tough financial decision because you're so upside down. I understand that, and we'll go over that with you, but it's going to be your decision. All right? Thank you.
If I could just lend some emphasis and support to something that Carlos said, is the climate is constantly changing. It's something we've seen just in past weeks. Terms that were just out of the question only weeks ago are suddenly on the table. So if you got a negative response from your lender only a short time ago, it's worthwhile to reapply or inquire again.
Question back here.
This is both general and personal. Generally, what happens when they can't sell your house at a sheriff's sale? Because I heard that there's a lot of houses for sale that nobody's buying.
We buy them back.
You buy, the bank buys them.
Right.
Doesn't
And
the
keep
bank
our
already
interest.
own them?
No. We have a dual interest in the property with you based off the mortgage agreement we had, but we have chose to collect based upon default of payment under that dual agreement. In order for us to take sole interest in that property, we have to bid on the property just like anybody else at the sheriff's sale.
The deed to the home is whoever's name is on the deed to the home is the legal owner of the property. At the time of the sheriff's sale, that's when the deed transfers. So at that point in time, that's when the deed goes back to either the mortgage, it goes to the mortgage company or to some other individual that bid on the property. And again, as Carlos said, 99% of the time it's the mortgage company bidding on the property.
Okay, well, my second question is, I thought I heard him say something about there's 2 notices. I got an official notice on February 25th, which was like 2 days, that it was going to be February 25th. And just before that, the sheriff in Wayne County said they wouldn't be doing sheriff sales. I have no idea where I stand right now.
Well, why don't you come in and have one of our councils take a look at that? I mean, that's a very difficult question. In Wayne County, the sheriff at the time, who's no longer the sheriff, put on a moratorium, and that moratorium ended, I believe it was April 15th. But what happened with respect to your property, that it needs to be researched. So that's something we can take a look at for you.
And just to reiterate, also, we realize that there are a lot of individuals that are not very comfortable with the internet. That is why 211 is also a very good resource. You give 211 a call, either by landline again or by 800 number, and the agent will run you through a quick survey, and then he or she will give you all the necessary information in regards to locations where you can go and submit your paperwork and all the necessary documents to begin the process as well.
Question here. You said that was Wayne, Macomb, and Washtenaw County. Is it anyone in other counties call that same number, Jackson County?
Yes. Well, and what will happen is you call 211 from Jackson County, and you'll probably get someone in Wayne County. But what will happen is they'll go either online or they'll look up information, and they'll give you the number to your local agency, your local United Way in your region, or the 800 number associated. But you'll receive the very same services.
Okay, and I had another question too. I just put my house on the market and lost half my income. Just this month is going to be the first month that I'm not going to be able to make a house payment. And people are telling me that I might be able to rent from my mortgage company. Is that?
It depends, really, it totally depends. Honestly, because that decision, and Carlos can tell you this too, that decision as to whether or not they're going to allow the owner occupant to rent the home really goes back to the investor. And so, some investors will allow it, some investors will not. It has to go back to the person who really has skin in the game, the investor.
And it's definitely something you should communicate to the lender that you are attempting to sell the house.
So I have a similar situation as the guy behind me. I am current on my mortgage, but I have an arm that's a 5-year fixed arm that's set to adjust next September. Now I've talked to my mortgage company, and they don't seem to want to work with me because I'm current on my mortgage.
When was the last conversation you had with them about that?
Probably a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago.
Okay. And again, when I preference the imminent default in talking to your lender, that's what it's about. I can only speak for Chase. I know that's what we do. I can't say that every lender is prepared to deal with imminent default at this point. But if you as a consumer keep calling and keep asking that question, then obviously they're going to hopefully respond to your demands. I would, again, as a few people suggested already, have a meeting with the housing counselor and have an extra voice, calling and asking for that assistance. And we as citizens here in the state of Michigan, in all honesty, kind of have to band together to make our voices heard with respect to the challenges that we're facing with our property values right now. It's really limiting on a lot of us, and one good thing that is happening on the refinance side of the game, I mentioned before that we can only lend up to a certain, or to what your home is worth with respect to paying off your existing mortgage. Under the Making Homes Affordable plan, and that's the Obama plan again, right now there is some piece of or some form of legislation that deals with refinances and gives us as lenders the ability to lend more than 100% of your loan to value. Right now it's set at 105%. Trust me, when I heard that number, myself and others here in the state of Michigan spoke up and said that's not going to work for us here. We're still going to have the same challenges. Most of our homeowners are at 120% plus. There's going to be an update to the Making Homes Affordable. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be effective September the 1st, and they're increasing that amount to 125% loan to value. So now that gives us as a lender another piece of information we can look at about possibly refinancing you up to 125% of your current loan to value, okay? And that kind of reestablishes a loan based off of, us being able to put you in a new loan that's going to pay off your own loan. But when we do that, then we can look at the interest rates and things of that nature to hopefully make it sustainable, very similar to a modification, but again, it would be a new loan. So there is, some help on the way with respect to that as we fight having depreciated property values here in Michigan.
One other thing I'd like to add to the gentleman that just asked the question. That's one of the benefits of working with a certified housing counselor. What we do is we completely put together the workout packages for our residents, for our customers. And two of the most important things in putting together a workout package, and Al can tell you this, is the budget, the revised family budget. For example, if you see that you have a $100 cable bill and you're eating out and you're paying $600 a month eating out, we can help you to pare that down. So one, you're really truly coming more in line with an emergency type situation, which you're in if you're talking about imminent default. And then the other portion of that, significant portion where there's an art to it, is the hardship letter. So with an excellent budget and a good hardship letter, it makes it much more palatable for the lender and the investor to work with you and to want to take steps to reduce your interest rate, extend the term of your loan, whatever option is on the table at that point.
And examine your terms. There are ARMs and then there are ARMs. ARMs are adjustable rate mortgages. There are ARMs out there that are truly evil, but most of the prevailing indexes that control your interest rate on an ARM are way down right now. Chances are your rate might go down in September.
Great point.
One other point too, that I'm sorry, this is really important. There are also attorneys that we work with. Sometimes what we're looking for in our application is about 5 or 6 different questions that are leading to whether or not this was a predatory loan. And in some instances, if we hit 3 out of the 5 flags, for example, we'll say to you, this looks like it was a predatory loan. Let us refer you to Legal Aid and Defender's Office because they will assess it, and that's all free of charge. So again, as Al said, there are ARMs and there are ARMs. There are truly evil ARMs that are probably predatory, and you want to have the benefit of a certified housing counselor looking at that with the benefit of fightmortgageforeclosure.com, the online application that'll fortify that, and we send that whole package over to Legal Aid and Defender on your behalf. So make use of these resources, these taxpayer-funded resources that you've already paid for.
Question back here.
Thank you. I have a double-fold question. The first has to do with second mortgages, home equity loans. Our primary mortgage is about 70% of our income right now. Our income's gone down. We're about earning about a third of what we did 5 years ago. So now 70% of the income is going to the primary mortgage. The secondary mortgage is a interest-only ARM that is with a different bank. And so it's very confusing and very tricky to me. I don't believe we're upside down yet in our primary mortgage because we had a lot of equity for a time. But when you add the second home equity line, that definitely makes us right at the edge, if not upside down. But because they're separate lending institutions, I don't know how to get them to talk to each other. I don't know how to, somehow use
Agreed.
Yeah.
The second is going to be in a more precarious position than the first, so they'll be a little more difficult to deal with. But that's why we're saying come to us, go to a HUD-certified housing counseling agency. That's exactly the situation we're talking about. It's very difficult for you to spend 3-4 hours at a time trying to negotiate, navigate through these waters. And you know what? Most of the time you're talking to the collections department, and their mission in life is to collect the debt. We have counselor-only numbers to the loss mitigation departments, and let us help you. Really, it's very difficult.
Okay, thank you.
And to elaborate on the answer that she gave you, just to kind of give you some insight on that, if you're facing that scenario, you have 2 different loans and 2 different lenders, you will need to have direct negotiations with each lender.
Okay.
Each loan is going to be reviewed on its individual merit.
Oh, dear.
They can both be modified independently. They will not be combined into one loan because that would constitute a refinance.
Okay. And then the second part of my question is, in the spring, May time, I did a lot of talking with the lender and got circles, literally. And the Home Retention Center said to me literally, "Oh, your problem is you don't have enough income." So my question,
that's a novel idea.
Yeah. And basically they said that they wouldn't approve anything unless we already had a positive debt to income ratio.
See, things have changed.
Has that changed
Ask
since then?
Carlos.
Yeah.
The climate has changed so much.
My question is, my husband's been unemployed for a year. We keep hoping that just around the corner will be something. So my question is, and I have an income now, finally, but my question is, how does unemployment as income work with that? How did they consider that where something is literally what I found was no help over the last year for something that's what we hope is somewhat short term, and next year we'll be in a much more solid financial position.
I want to address that. Unemployment, first of all, is a viable source of income, so don't be afraid to approach your lender with that as part of your income equation. Okay, we want to take a proactive look as to where you are. But I want to address the situation where, we ran the numbers, or the lender ran your number and said, unfortunately, at this time, there's nothing we can do because your income does not support a workout. Unfortunately, that is a true statement a lot of times. The term help is very relative in what we're doing in this scenario, because a lot of people perceive help as, well, you're helping me by not taking my house, or telling me I don't have to make payments for a certain amount of time, or cutting my payment down to a quarter of what it was to help me through this time. I think the tough part for us in the lending community is it's still a financial obligation. There's still a note and a financial obligation that needs to be paid upon. That can be stretched to certain thresholds, and I can assure you, when you contact your lenders, we're going to stretch it as far as we can. But if we take it down to 0% interest, we take the term all the way back out as far as we can, there's no more room to adjust a loan, and your figures show that you cannot afford that adjustment, we have to tell you that. We're bound by the fair lending laws, okay? And we cannot put you into a financial circumstance that you just cannot afford when we review your financial situation. So there still is a level of justification there. I know a lot of times people feel like, well, heck, they're not trying to help me because they're not really taking into account my personal situation and trying to help me through my personal struggle or my personal storm. But I just kind of wanted to address that because I don't want that to be the prevailing perception. It's really tough to convey that to people, that unfortunately there still are some numbers behind this, okay? And we have to realistically look at what's in your best interest, because it's not fair for us to put you on something we know you can't afford.
Sure,
so it defeats the purpose.
Is our numbers are this today, and 2 months from now they might be very different.
Now understand that the loss mitigation review is open all the way through the point of sheriff's sale. So even if you're 30 days delinquent versus somebody who's 6 months delinquent, we can still help that person that's 6 months delinquent as long as that sheriff's sale hasn't taken place, and we can look at different retention options. So don't feel that all hope is lost when you get that first note in the mail from the attorney. Okay, and that's why again the housing counselors are important, because sometimes those messages are not always clearly conveyed between ourselves and our customers. But when you have an independent third party involved, they can kind of cut to some of those answers that you may be looking for and give you a little bit different perspective than the lender can, and apply it to your individual circumstances.
One thing I'd like to say, even after the sheriff's sale, not all hope is lost. Now, the options do dwindle considerably, but we launched this program October 1st of 2008. We've helped about 1,700 families since that time, which we are very proud of. We have been able to pull 5 homes out of the redemption period, reinstate the mortgage, and modify it. But that's after their circumstances change. So let's say your husband ends up getting reemployment. Again, it's very rare. We're not encouraging that. Do not wait to the very last. Come in as soon as you think you might be at risk of foreclosure. But I guess the point to take away is still not all hope is lost. And I'm so proud to work with these counselors. They go to the mat on everything. They really do.
And I think the best thing you can do in that scenario is just ask your lender for time. I don't want it to seem like we're not willing to look at that. That's where the special forbearances come into place. But we can't consider those things unless we hear from you as a customer and get an understanding of exactly where you are.
Stalk them.
Let's take one more question because we really are running out of time. The library's closing in about 15 minutes. I'm going to get in one more question. And then just so you know, the folks who are here will be able to talk to you. There's 5 of them, so you may be able to get your questions answered one-on-one as soon as we wrap this up. Let me take one more question.
You almost answered my question. Now, I went to Green Path. That's one of the respected, right?
Yes, that's a very respected
Yeah, I talked
agency.
with them 2 months ago, and I'm collecting employment. My employment is going to run out probably, could be 2 weeks from now. I don't know. There's extension because I'm collecting more than a year. Collecting more than a year right now. And I think that what they do, they waiting. Soon I'm getting employment. They waiting for me, to go. Then I'll be in default. They waiting for me to be on default. Then they gonna help me, something like that.
I have a hard time believing that.
Right.
Are you trying to say that they haven't contacted your lender?
No, they did not.
Green Path hasn't contacted your
No,
lender?
they did not. That's I'm talking 2 months ago. I don't know you're talking about
2
now.
months ago. I will tell you that they probably, I'll tell you that more likely than not, they did contact your lender. The problem is, the lenders used to get 600 calls a week. They're getting 6,000 calls a week and 10,000 applications to mitigate these cases. So it's first in, first out. I'm quite certain, because Green Path is a reputable organization, that they did what they needed to do. It's just, unfortunately, it's a waiting game. That's the problem.
Okay, what do you suggest me to do right now? I call 211 again.
We have a person who says he has the answer.
Okay, with Green Path, you got to sit down with them, and they will call your bank, and you have to give permission for them to talk.
So they got it. I signed it.
Right. Now, after all that is all said and done, it's up to you. In other words, you have to hound them, the bank and everything. I was with Countrywide, and now I'm with Bank of America that had a problem, was it a couple weeks ago on the news? And, remortgaging, if you can't make your payments, forget that, because that's going to cost you a couple of $1,000s or more. So, I've heard that part, so.
If I can respond to one thing, I would like to tell you, you will not solve your problems on the telephone. That is 75% of our service is correspondence. What you need to do is you need a written case that a negotiator, someone who can make a true decision, sit down in a quiet place with no other distractions and read. They're not going to listen to your phone call. You always inject a lot of emotion into it.
Have you
FightMortgageForeclosure.com.
Have you contacted your mortgage company to verify whether or not they got anything from Green Path?
What's that?
Have you contacted your mortgage company to find out whether or not they've received your information from Green Path?
They said, I don't think they called them. I called them and I didn't get nothing. Myself.
Why don't you log on and create a case, and we'll see if we can figure out what happened in your situation.
We can follow up on that.
Okay, we can follow up.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we are at the point where we are out of time, but I want to thank everyone for coming, and I especially want to thank our wonderful panel here, Al, Jamil, Carlos, Shalita, and Ann Mansa. And if you have additional questions, we probably have a little bit more time. I just want to remind you that this workshop was funded in part by the Facing the Mortgage Crisis CPB Public Service Media Economic Response Initiative, put on for you by Michigan Radio and Michigan Radio and Detroit Public Television. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you benefited from this.